I feel like I find myself saying this over and over again. Unsurprisingly, as expected, blah, 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 blah. I really hate this because I'm doing it all the time because they constantly give me reason to. Donald Trump's right-hand stooge, as it pertains to the Department of Defense, his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, accidentally invited a journalist to their Signal group chat. Signal, the app, the messaging app. Pete Hegseth invited a journalist to his Signal group chat in which he, J.D. Vance, and many others were discussing war plans against the Houthis, about Europe, just an absolutely just low IQ spectacle. And when asked about it in Hawaii, in public, Pete Hegseth doesn't deny it. He instead simply shifts blame and starts bringing up random Russia. He starts bringing up all this random, literally he goes word for word, Russia, just bringing up excuses, shifting blame, allocating any sort of, accountability to just random people. Total nonsense.
Can you share how your information about war plans against the Houthis in Yemen was shared with a journalist in The Atlantic? And were those details classified?
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. I would love to comment on the Houthi campaign because of the skill and courage of our troops. I've monitored it very closely.
I've heard enough. It's quite ironic that the guy who everybody said would be drunk on duty, wouldn't be able to do his job, might be uppercutting a woman in some back alley while drinking Casamigos, like that guy, unironically, is the one. Unironically, in fact, if I said ironically, I was wrong. Unironically is the one to be adding random journalists to a Signal group chat about war plans in Yemen. Joe Biden, who's a boomer of boomers, I think he was a silent generation baby. Joe Biden, who probably can't work Signal to save his life, never managed to accomplish this. But Pete Hegseth, a Gen Xer, doesn't know how to handle a fucking phone? And this is supposed to be making America great again. Now, notice he brings up random stuff like Russia, fine people on both sides. Since you want to deny Russia, what about Paul Manafort? What about Mike Flynn? What about all these people in Trump's camp who lied about their contacts with Russia and ended up going down? They went down legally, like many other people in Donald Trump's orbit who go down, in total legal ruin, whether it's them going to prison or significant lawsuits. What about that? He would never ever address it. He talks about the fine people on both sides. Donald Trump chose to make that statement about those people and then thought that by saying, not the neo-Nazis, he thought somehow he was buying himself some sort of time, distancing himself from the worst of it. That rally was not a neo-Nazi rally. That rally was a neo-Confederate rally meant to preserve the statue of Robert E. Lee. Donald Trump, even if he says not the neo-Nazis, you still have white supremacists, white nationalists, and neo-Confederates that Donald Trump did not condemn. I can't help but look at that some type of way. You want to condemn the Nazis? That was in Europe. The Holocaust was in Europe. Chattel slavery was here. And people fighting to maintain the statue of a man who betrayed the United States to preserve it, those individuals were called very fine people by Donald Trump. Now, if Robert E. Lee was black, do you think they would have made a statue to Robert E. Lee? No. If Robert E. Lee was a black man who fought to free slaves and created a whole new nation, the Confederate States of America, a new black state with free slaves, and he rebelled against the United States, do you think a single statue of him would have been put up? No. So notice how Trump's own henchmen know exactly how to act. They all learn it from him. He's like a bad influence in the most hilarious of ways. He's like this big ass kid who, influences everyone around him in this malignant way, where you have grown adults talking like him. Remember that video of that white woman who was like, little Denmark can't protect Greenland from us. Little Denmark. These are grown adults who would never talk like this in real life, but they hear Trump do it and they want to be like Trump. Little Denmark. They hear him do it and they just can't help but just want to be like him. It's honestly, it reeks of daddy issues. It reeks of daddy issues. It really does. So let's actually read into what was going on in the group chat. Let's see what they were talking about, right? JD Vance sits there and says, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. Now they're talking about strikes in Yemen against the Houthis. This is supposed to be America's domain. Our Navy protects global trade, but for some reason they want to offload this to the Europeans while simultaneously having leverage over the Europeans. And that just doesn't work like that. He goes on to say, let's just make sure our messaging is tight here, and if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Hegseth goes on to say, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. You would think, you know what? Actually, you know what this is? This is evidence, I think. I hope Hegseth didn't do this on purpose. But to be honest, given that interview reaction, I think that was an accident and he was very much embarrassed. This proves to me these really do believe the dumb shit they say. He sits there and says, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. Now, Europe is somehow freeloading off of America. The reason why the United States has been allowing Europe to freeload is because having complete dominion over civilized international trade gives the United States economic and military power over the world and ensures global prosperity. It's not for Europe, it's for us. And it also gives us leverage over almost everyone in the world. Pete Hegseth, despite being the Secretary of Defense, cannot comprehend the reason why our predecessors did these things. He goes on to say, but Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. That's exactly the point, and it's that way on purpose. But anyways, nobody else is even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good a time as any, given Trump's directed to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but Trump still retains 24 hours of decision space. SM, not sure who that is. As I heard it, the president was clear. Green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement. It's unbelievable to me how, to them, they want to play mafioso. The leverage the U.S. Navy and the United States has as a whole is not enough. They have to further squeeze and squeeze and squeeze on Europe. You know what the Europeans are probably going to do? You know what? If we're going to get blackmailed and shaken down like some kind of like mafioso film, you know what? We're going to rebuild. We're going to build our navies up and we'll just handle everything from here. Now, conservatives think that's great. They really do. Until they don't have the same economic and strategic leverage as they did before. Now you're left with really nothing in the end. And we're going to have to learn this the hard way. And we're not going to get any of this back in my lifetime or your lifetime. All of the damage these nincompoops will do will be permanent. SM says, as I heard it, the president was clear. Green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement. E.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. So to them, civilized functioning like planet Earth being a civilized space, free trade, that's not enough. They need to extort the rest of the Western world for securing free trade. We'll allow prices to go up, we'll allow mayhem to ensue, and we'll allow other nation states and power blocks to find some sort of solution to this, excluding American power. We'll let that happen, and if you want us to fix it, we're gonna have to shake you down for something. This is the most pathetic, disgusting, ghetto, nasty administration we've ever seen. That we've ever seen. Plain obvious advantage and strategic gain isn't enough. They have to somehow shake down and like gangster mafioso blackmail Europe. It's just ridiculous. Frankly, I don't want, no offense to the Europeans, but I like American military dominance. I like Pax Americana. I like knowing the US Navy runs the world. All this is going to do is strengthen the independence of the Europeans, drive them away from American military might, and they're going to end up building up their own navies, and they're going to secure that side of the world. And the Monroe Doctrine is going to end up becoming a real thing, and frankly, we've been benefiting from the opposite of that for quite some time. I really don't want that to change, but it really looks like it's going to. Because if it's this bad within the span of 3 months, imagine how bad it's going to be in the span of 4 years. I am done pretending with conservatives like they know how to run a functioning country. I'm frankly done. I'm tired. I'm done. I'm not interested anymore. I'm tired of pretending. It's about time we went on the offensive and we got aggressive. This is embarrassing. It's pathetic. It's weird. This is just like, it's like, how the fuck do you even manage to do this? As I said before, Joe Biden was 80 gazillion years old, probably can barely work Instagram, if at all, and never had this happen. It's almost like when you give a damn about doing the right thing and working within the confines of the rule of law, the odds of you fucking up significantly decrease. But see, the reality is Donald Trump hired Pete Hegseth specifically because of behavior like this. Pete Hegseth validates Donald Trump's lawlessness. Pete Hegseth validates Donald Trump's chaos. This is the reason why Netanyahu played games with Biden for like a year and a half. Oh, I can't see the ceasefire. Where's somebody help me sign the ceasefire? Then before Trump even walked into the White House and cursed it yet again, Netanyahu says, wow, magical ceasefire. Wow, thanks, Donald Trump. Trump's not even in office yet. He just won the election. And all of a sudden, magically, Netanyahu understands what a ceasefire is. Right? Now he understands. Why? Because Netanyahu wanted to validate his own criminality, his own lack of respect for rule of law, by empowering and emboldening someone who's just like him, Donald Trump. Joe Biden wanted Israel working within the confines of the law, which, there were multiple, altercations and situations where Israel stepped right out of it. But Netanyahu knows Trump couldn't give a damn about international law. Joe Biden actually cared and did what he could despite what radical lunatics were saying on the internet. Trump couldn't give a damn, and that's why Netanyahu all of a sudden signed the deal before Trump even walked into the White House. To validate other leaders like himself. That is the reality of the situation. This is the reason why Donald Trump hired Pete Hegseth, because someone like Pete Hegseth isn't going to look at Donald Trump wrong if Donald Trump commits a crime with the powers of the office of the president. Pete Hegseth himself is about to be a criminal, probably already is a criminal, and already is an incompetent buffoon. Two incompetent buffoons only enable and create more incompetent buffoonery. They don't clean it up. They don't undo it. It's times two. It multiplies and spreads. Trump is like a disease. He spreads the disease everywhere, all throughout the White House. Everyone from top to bottom, total incompetent buffoons. And Pete Hegseth, of course, is just like his daddy, Trump. He engages in the same kind of tactic of, oh, I fucked up. Let me shift the conversation toward a bunch of random shit nobody asked him about. And unfortunately, the left isn't going to make some kind of nickname for him. They're not going to go in on him. They're not going to constantly bring him up. They're going to let this go. Unfortunately. But the reason why Donald Trump picked up Pete Hegseth and put him on his starting five is because Pete Hegseth will do whatever Donald Trump wants him to do, because Pete Hegseth is the exact same kind of guy as Donald Trump. That is why. Donald Trump can't surround himself with actual professionals who honor and respect the job that they've been hired to do by the American people? Absolutely not. He can't do that because he'd end up with another Mark Milley. He'd end up with another Kelly. He'd end up with another, like, Mike Pence. Like, he can't surround himself with accountable, honorable people who love God. He can't do that. If he did, he wouldn't be able to do anything criminal. He wouldn't be able to get anything done. And by anything, I mean evil. That's the reality of the situation here. So, you know, I don't know if it was intentional. You can never tell with these people, but I don't think it was. I think you could tell Pete Hegseth was embarrassed. Donald Trump denied even knowing about it. But it's like, how do you even manage to do that? Was he drunk? Was he not? Like, I mean, like, this just is, it's emblematic of what it means to work for Donald Trump. It just really and truly is. I don't know what else to say.